Assalamualaikum. Today we will discuss the histology of the stomach. Stomach again consists of the mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa and serosa. Stomach is the muscular organ in which there is the both mechanical and chemical digestion process. The stomach mainly consists of the four parts: the cardiac end, which is just close to the esophagus, then the upper dome shaped small part is the fundus, then this whole part is the body, and the last part, which is just become continuous with the duodenum, is the pylorus. These are the four parts of the stomach, which we will discuss their differences, everything one by one. First, we will study the mucosa. Mucosa again consists of epithelium, lamina propria and muscularis mucosae. In case of the stomach, the epithelium is simple columnar epithelium, and this is the simple columnar epithelium as I have drawn, and this simple columnar epithelium make the surface mucous cells, which these surface mucous cells are form this epithelium, and then they will dip down to form the gastric pits. These gastric pits are the characteristic features of the mucosa of the stomach. These gastric pits will dip down and they then converted into the glands, the gastric glands, which has the following parts: isthmus or the neck and the base. This is the gastric gland and this is the gastric pit. So the gastric gland consists of different types of cells. Number one are the mucous neck cells, which you will find in the neck region. These mucous neck cells, they produce the mucus just like that of the surface mucous cells. But there are some differences between the surface mucous cells and the mucous neck cells. What are these differences? The surface mucous cells, they form more viscous mucus, but the mucous neck cells, they form the soluble mucus. This mucus is very important because it, with the bicarbonate ions, they form a glycoprotein layer, and this will protect the mucosal lining of the stomach from the abrasive action of the HCl, which is produced by the parietal cells. Then the mucous neck cells are more alkaline in nature. Then next cells are the parietal cells. These cells are present in the isthmus as well as on the base of the stomach, gastric glands. These parietal cells are ovoid structures, and they have the centrally located nucleus, and they have a lot of mitochondria. What they produce, the parietal cells produce two things. Number one is the HCl, hydrochloric acid, and second one is the intrinsic factor. This intrinsic factor is very important because this is required for the absorption of the vitamin B12 in the small intestine, and this vitamin B12 is in turn is required for the synthesis of the RBCs. So if these parietal cells are damaged or absent, then there will be no secretion of the intrinsic factor. Resultantly, there will be the anemia due to the lack of synthesis of the RBCs. This is known as the pernicious anemia. Next cells that we find in the gastric glands are the stem cells, which are very important because they are undifferentiated totipotent cells that will form other cells. Next cells are the chief cells or the zymogen cells. These are present in the base of the gastric gland. This one is the base of the gastric gland. These are very much basophilic cells because they have all the structures or characteristics related to the protein secreting cells. They have abundant rough endoplasmic reticulum. What are the secretions of the chief cells? Chief cells produce pepsinogen and lipase. Pepsinogen, you know that this is an inactive ingredient. When there will be these cells will be in the acidic environment, means HCl if present, then this pepsinogen will be converted into the pepsin. Now this pepsin will digest all the proteins in the stomach. And next is the lipase. This is weak lipase, which will do the digestion of the lipids. So I told you about some cells of the gastric gland. One is the mucous neck cells present in the neck, then the parietal cells which secrete the HCl and the intrinsic factor. Then we have the stem cells, then chief cells or zymogen cells which are present in the base of the gastric gland. Then we have a lot of enteroendocrine cells. These are also present in the base, and these have other cell types also. For example, D cells, which form the somatostatin, and the G cells, which form the gastrin, which is important for the gastric motility. So this was about the mucosa. And again, in the lamina propria we have the branch tubular glands, and in the muscularis mucosae we have the 1 or 2 layers of the smooth muscles fibers. If I told you about the differences between the mucosa of the different parts, you should know that the fundus and the body have the same almost features, and the cardiac region and the pylorus has the same features. The fundus and the body have the shallow pits, while the cardiac and the pylorus region has the deep gastric pits. The fundus and the body have mainly parietal cells, chief cells, while the cardiac or pylorus region mainly have the mucus cells, increased secretion of the mucus. And when you will draw a histological diagram, then almost 2/3 of the mucosa will be filled these gastric glands, and a lot of gastric glands you will draw. And in the cardiac and the pylorus, you will have the half-half ratio of the mucosa. So now we will discuss the submucosa. Submucosa again have the branch tubular glands in the stomach, and in the muscularis externa there will be 3 muscle layers: inner oblique layer, middle circular, and the outer longitudinal muscle layers. So this is the difference, because there is an addition of another layer, which is the oblique muscle layer. So the last layer is the serosa. Why serosa is present in the stomach? Because in the abdominal cavity it is suspended by the mesenteries, greater omentum, lesser omentum. So that is why the connective tissue muscle fibers layers, connective tissue layers will be covered by the mesothelium, which is simple squamous epithelium. So the serosa is present in the stomach. We will revise thoroughly. I told you about the mucosa, which is epithelium. So the epithelium is simple columnar epithelium. This is the simple columnar epithelium of the mucosa, and this mucosa will dip down to form the gastric pits. These gastric pits then become continuous with the gastric glands. Gastric glands have the 2 parts, neck or isthmus, and the base. The neck has the mainly mucous neck cells and the parietal cells, and the base mainly have the chief cells. Other cells which are scattered are the stem cells, which are undifferentiated totipotent cells. We also have the enteroendocrine cells dispersed. Mainly these enteroendocrine cells are present throughout the GIT, but in case of the stomach, these are mainly D cells and the G cells. D cells produce the somatostatin, which inhibit the HCl, and G cells produce the gastrin, which is important for the stomach motility. Then I told you about some differences in the mucosa, in the fundus in the body, and the cardiac and the pylorus, about the pits, parietal cells, and the length of the mucosa. Then I told you about the submucosa, which have the branch tubular glands, muscularis externi, which contains the inner oblique, middle circular, and the outer longitudinal layers, and the serosa is here, which is present. This was all about the stomach. I hope you understand. Thank you.